Alright, can everybody hear me? Coming in a little early just to test out all the settings. Alright, if you guys will, just say something in the chat. Let me know that you can see me, you can hear me, and we will get started here just in a minute. Alright, good deal. Awesome, thanks guys. Thanks for tuning in. We'll give everybody a second to get here. I just posted the link on Twitter. Definitely share this if you guys have social media. You want to invite your friends, that sort of thing. The more the merrier. Give everybody just a couple minutes and then we'll get started. Alright, you guys that are tuning in, we'll get a sneak peek on a couple of the new things that we've put in that we haven't shown off to the whole public yet. Some of it's still a work in progress, but you'll get a kind of a sneak peek of it today. Alright, so let me give you guys a quick overview of what we'll be doing today. About a week ago, I sent Moody some videos of the new quarterback movement. He made a video of it and posted it on YouTube. In one of the comments, somebody pointed out that the linemen weren't disengaging in a block the way they would normally in real football. So, for example, if I'm blocking somebody here and the quarterback steps up in the pocket and is now behind me, the lineman would easily disengage the block to go get the quarterback. But what happens in the game right now is they stay stuck in the block and there's no logic for breaking out of that. Somebody identified that in the video, put it down in the comments. We typically read all of the comments, and that's something that it should be relatively easy to fix. And so I said, you know what, let's not only fix that, but let's live stream the fix. We want to let you guys know that your feedback to us is really important. It's something that we not only read, but we try to implement as best as we can. Obviously, not everything that you guys suggest is something that can be done quickly, but we have a huge ideas section on our Trello board, which is where we keep our workflow. And so we definitely try to get those into the game. This is something that we can do, hopefully, relatively quickly. And that kind of leads me into my next point. Huge disclaimer up front. This is as accurate of a picture as you can get as far as how we fix stuff. Okay, I haven't fixed this ahead of time. I haven't even looked at this. And some of this code I wrote probably 4 years ago. So you're going to see a very accurate representation of how we fix stuff. It might go really smoothly. There might be a ton of hiccups. We may discover issues. I have no idea what's going to happen. So you guys are in for a treat as far as getting a true inside look at about how this stuff works. I'm guessing, and this is a huge asterisk, I'm guessing this is going to take half hour, 45 minutes. I will have some time for questions at the end through the chat on YouTube. So if you're logged into YouTube watching this, there is a chat section there. I will try to keep an eye on that while I'm coding, while I'm fixing this, and I will obviously be explaining what I'm doing. Are there any questions up front about what we're going to be doing that I can answer from you guys? But I turn my mic up. I can try to turn my mic up. Give me a second. Audio. Yes. Nope, not that one. Hey, thanks for joining in, guys. Everybody that's kind of joined in recently. Let me get my mic turned up a little bit for you guys. Okay. Is that any better? Is my mic louder? Give me thumbs up, thumbs down in the chat. And if this is one of the first streams that you guys have watched, I am about, what you are seeing is about 5 seconds behind real time. That's how streams work, so that it's a constant, uninterrupted flow of video. So when I say something, if I say something and look in chat, you guys will see it about 5 seconds after I actually say it. So there's might be a little bit of a delay there. Thanks, guys. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to go ahead and run the game. This is Unity. This is the engine that we use to create the game. I'm going to go ahead and run this and kind of point out what the issue is and what we're going to do to fix it. Game takes a second to run here. And what I've done is I've turned off the fans. I'm going to mute the audio. I turned off the fans. I typically do this when I work on the game just because it's unnecessary stuff running in the background. So here's our new play selection window. I'm using keyboard and mouse. Obviously, controllers work. This is just easier when I work on the game. So I'm not switching between stuff. So I'm going to grab just a pass play here. And I'm going to drop back for a pass. And then basically what we have, I've got the game paused and we can kind of look at it. As these players engage in the block, there's no, let me kind of move around in the pocket a little bit. So for example, right here, I'm going to pause it. In this situation, if you take a look at 92 and 95 and 83, maybe not 95, defensive linemen usually have a really good idea of where the quarterback is. And what these guys would do in this situation is 92 would break off of this block and go try to tackle the quarterback. And instead, they kind of get stuck here. And it makes sense for them to stick in the block if the quarterback is still behind them. Okay, so if we take the quarterback and we move him back here, okay, so if this is where the quarterback is, or there's a blocker in between, then it makes sense for them to try to fight through the block. But if it's a situation where the quarterback is up here, they're going to try to disengage this block. And so what we're going to do is we're going to modify this code. So instead of them just kind of staying stuck on the block, we're going to modify the code to have them kind of keep an eye on where the quarterback is relative to where they are. And if they're in a position to break out of the block to get the quarterback, they're going to disengage. Okay, and so that's what we're going to do here. So I'm going to stop this here and I'm going to pull up the code. And all of this is, all right, all of this is in code, in our code called Player AI. As soon as gives me control of Unity again, there we go. So I'm going to open up Player AI, which is the script that handles most of the logic for the AI decisions. I'm going to make the font a little bit bigger so you guys can see it. And then I believe this is in a function called run offense. Alright, so right here, this is the code that runs while they're blocking. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a call here. And I'm going to say in block with script. So this gives me access to the defensive player that we are in a block with. So this code is from the offensive player's perspective. And what we're doing is we're getting access to who the offensive player is currently blocking. Yeah, kind of a heads up. If you join or you see somebody join the chat while we're working on something, if you just want to kind of quickly fill them in what we're doing, that would be super helpful. Thanks, guys. All right, so we're going to call in block with script, and then we'll call this check for block disengage. That's what we'll call it. Okay, and so we're going to call a function on the defensive player where they're going to constantly check for whether or not they need to disengage the block. Okay, so I'm just going to come down here at the end of this. One second. And we'll say public void check for disengage block. All right, I'm going to comment this so that we know what's going on here. We'll say defensive player checks the position of the quarterback and breaks out of a block if the QB passes them on the left or the right. Okay, so here is, let me try to set this problem up for you guys. So if we look at this, give a sheet of paper. So if we look at this problem, basically what we've got is, well, let me run the game, I'll show it to you here. Basically what we want is, if I'm engaged in a block and the quarterback passes me on the left or the right in a position to where I can easily disengage the block, and the offensive player that is blocking me is no longer in between me and the quarterback, then I'm going to not only be able to, but want to disengage that block and go after the quarterback. Now, the tricky thing is actually being able to detect that situation. Okay, here's one of our new formations, is single back bunch to the right. So if I drop back and I'm right here, we're going to have to write some math. So all of you that took math in high school and college and your professor said, you're going to need this in the future, this might be one of those situations where we have to use the math that those teachers told you you'll never have to use, or that you thought you'll never have to use. All right, so here's the thing. What we're going to have to calculate is whether or not the quarterback has passed the player. So still about right here, we're getting to the point where this defender right here, what number is he? He's 95. We're getting to the point where he's going to want to try to shed off the block and be able to do so. And the tough part is, we can't just simply use whether or not the quarterback is farther downfield. Okay, that works if the defender and the offensive guy are facing directly, like 180 degrees straight forward towards one of the end zones. Then we can say, well, if the quarterback is farther downfield, then we can go ahead and say, yes, we passed him on the left or the right. The difficult thing is that we don't know the position of the player at the time that we want to check this. So for example, if we look at 98, 98 is facing the sideline. We can't simply say, okay, well, if the quarterback is farther upfield, then we're going to disengage the block. And so this is based entirely off of the direction of the player. And so the type of math that we need to use here is vector math, or this is kind of like linear algebra, where we have to determine the forward-facing vectors of not only the player, but also where the quarterback is. Okay, and so step one is we're going to have to kind of draw a line between where the player is and where the quarterback is. And reading some of the chat stuff, if you guys take nothing from this, other than this one thing, I just want you guys to have a little bit of an appreciation about how difficult some of this stuff is. Not from our standpoint, but when people criticize or kind of point out all of the things that are wrong, not just with our game, but with any game. Like, you look at Madden or any other football game or other sports games out there, and you point out, well, that shouldn't have happened, or that player should have done this. Hopefully this simple example sheds some light on the complexity that's involved with making those calculations and determining what the right thing to do is. So let's get back to this. So what we want to do is we're going to use some vector math here to determine basically how far the quarterback is around from the defender. So if I've got our D lineman here, I'm going to draw a picture. So if I have our D lineman here, you guys see this. Basically what we want to do is we want to be able to calculate where around the defensive lineman the quarterback is, okay? And this is going to be based entirely on the direction that the quarterback, or direction that the lineman is facing. Because if the lineman is facing here, if he's facing straight up like this, then as the quarterback comes around this way and passes this left and right hand mark, kind of perpendicular to the direction that he's facing, that's when we're going to want to flag him that he can break out of the block. Alright, so let's get to some coding stuff. Alright, so the first thing that we're going to want to do here is, and I'm going to comment some of this stuff, and for those of you non-coders, comments are basically code that's not run. It's there for the programmer to kind of remember, like notes that, don't get run in the code. Alright, so we are going to calculate vector between the defender and the quarterback. Alright, the way that we're going to do that, we're going to declare a variable, we'll call it towards, and we're going to subtract the quarterback's position, which should be, I think it's game dot offensive quarterback dot trans dot position minus trans dot position. Okay, so basically what that line of code does, if our defender is here and our quarterback is here, let me draw a line here. So if our defender is here and our quarterback is here, if I can point to it, what this does by subtracting the two locations is it gives us a vector, which is a line or line in space. It gives us a line from the defensive lineman to the quarterback. Okay, so once we have that line, what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to normalize it. And a normalized vector simply has a magnitude of 1, which means its length is 1. Alright, and once we've got that, then we're going to use that as the basis for... One second. We're going to use that as the basis for calculating how far around to the left or right they are. Okay, so let me do this. I'm going to exit out of play mode. I'm going to kind of do this one step at a time so you can see how this works. So we'll go debug.drawLine, trans.position. So let's do debug.drawArray, trans.position, towards, color dot green. Alright, so we'll let this code compile and I'll run it to you and kind of show you what we've got so far. Programming language is C#. Programming language is C#. Alright, so let's test out what we've got here. Go back, these guys are engaged in a block, And what we've got as we are going through this, look at it from under here. These guys are constantly grabbing a point from their position to where the quarterback is. Okay, so I want to make sure that this, I'm going to put a print statement here because I don't see the lines that should be drawing. We should see green lines coming from here. Let me let's do, I think it might be getting caught in the grass. Right, let's try this again. And I just put a little message, this little running. I know that's not how you spell running. Put a little message in there to make sure the function's getting called in the first place. So what I'm doing, those of you guys that just turned in, what I'm doing is the very first step in this is I'm needing to calculate a line or a vector between the defender that's being blocked and the quarterback. This is the first step in determining whether or not the quarterback has gone past the defender, left or right. So you guys are getting a look at some of the new formations that we've got. So I'm checking for the lines because they're not drawing where they're supposed to. But we are getting the output message that it is running. See, it's running a bunch. Oh, there they are, because it's only running 4 frames. Okay, good. So here are our lines, and basically what we're doing is the code is calculating a line. You see the length here. I'm touching the screen like you guys can see it. The length here, this green line, this is a magnitude of 1. And magnitude simply means length of the line, or length of the vector. And so all of these, as you can see, are pointing directly to the quarterback, and they're relative to the position of the direction that the lineman is facing. Okay? And so now that we've got that, and we verified that it is pointing in the correct direction, let's come back here. And what we want to do is, I'm going to comment this out so that we don't draw that line anymore. What we want to do is we want to be able to determine how far the quarterback is from that position. Okay? So the way that we're going to do that is we are going to use a formula known as the dot product. And the dot product takes, you pass the dot product two vectors, and they're typically normalized. Okay, so two vectors that have a length of 1. And the dot product returns, so if you look at this example here, right over here, if we pass it this vector and this vector, the dot product returns a value from -1 to +1 that refers to how much the first vector extends in the second vector's direction. So if both of them are directly forward, if we have like this, or both of them are forward, that would give us a value of 1 because they're in the same direction. Okay, if it's going to the left, if it's perpendicular, it would be 0, and if they're going in the opposite directions, that's going to give us -1. So this is what we're going to use as the determining factor for whether or not the quarterback has passed the player on the left or the right. Okay, so let's we'll call it float dot vector 3 dot product, and we are going to take the, I think we need to take the right hand vector. Hold on, I gotta do some math here. Take the right hand vector . No, should be the forward vector. Okay. And so what I want to do here is I want to, I'm going to print this out. so we're calculating the dot product using the player's forward-facing vector and the vector towards the quarterback. And I'm printing this out because I want to see what kind of values that we get, and then we'll use that as the basis for taking the next step. So, question in the chat while this is running. Why did we select Unity? There's a lot of factors. Unity gets a bad rap because a lot of the games that are produced using Unity don't look very good. And Unity isn't given credit for the quality that it can produce. We thought C# was a better language than Unreal's C++. Certainly Unreal's a great engine. There's a lot of good engines out there. And we felt like the engine didn't matter nearly as much as a lot of people seem to think. And we had some experience with Unity, and we're not necessarily opposed to switching at some point in the future, but until our engine significantly limits what we can do, that's not really an area that switching would yield a lot of improvement. Alright, so one more question from the chat about this. So, Strawberry Yogurt, why can't you code the D line to constantly disengage as opposed to waiting until the quarterback gets past point? We can. It's kind of a long answer to get to that point. They do try to get around them, but once they get engaged in a block, we keep them in a block for a little bit of time. And that's kind of a separate question than what we're doing here. What we're doing here is, so for example, if you think a defensive lineman is trying to create contain as we go around the outside or something like that, and a lot of times, even if they're not sure if it's going to be a run, they're engaged in a block, they're kind of holding their position to shed the lineman at an appropriate time to make a tackle on a running back or to keep a quarterback contained inside. And so what they're doing here is we're looking at a point where they would no longer want to kind of stay in their position. This isn't so much a pass rush AI logic set as much as it is we are just focusing on a situation where the lineman would want to kind of disengage from where they are to go chase the quarterback at another position. I'm sure as you guys watch this, you're going to see lots of things that needs improvement, and we are totally with you on that. There's lots of things that we need to improve. We're just trying to make incremental steps to get where we need to be. All right, so let's go back to where we are. I'm going to go and snap the ball, and let's kind of pause this here, and let's take a look at some of the values that we have. All right, so here's our little output window. All right, let's take a look at 95. So 95's dot is almost 1, which is good because that basically tells us the quarterback is directly in front of him. Let's take a look at 92. So 92's dot is 85, okay? And what we want here, the values should correspond to how far in front the quarterback is. So the closer to 1, the more directly in front it is, okay? So 93 should have, I'm guessing, a similar value to 92. It does. It's pretty close. And then we look over here at 98. Okay, and 98 is a situation where we've got a negative value. And this is what we want here because in this situation, there is no reason that 98 should be in this block. Okay, he should disengage and go after the quarterback. Okay, and there is no reason that he should not be able to disengage at this point. Now, one of the other guys on our team, Dave Haig, who does a really good job coding with me and doing so much in this game, had a really good idea as we were talking through this exact point. He said this would be a great opportunity where we can look for a potential holding call. Because as 98 disengages, if he tries to disengage and can't, or this is where we can, take 74's discipline rating, discipline attribute, and maybe some other factors in the game, like what down it is, how much time's left, what the score is, and whether or not he wants to kind of attempt or screw up and accidentally perform a hold on 98. So if 98 tries to break out of this block, there's a chance that we get a holding call here, okay? And again, everything that we try to do is to make this game as realistic as possible. Certainly we're not there yet in all aspects, but that is our goal. That is our kind of long-term vision. We're not looking at an arcade-style game. We want to make this as realistic as possible. So I'm going to put in the comments some areas where we could potentially flag a offensive holding call here, and I'll make a comment for Dave because he did all of the penalty coding for 2018, which will be in the game. Alright, so now that we've got this idea, basically what we want is if we have a value that is, I'm just going to say if it's less than 0, let's do this. I'm going to take our quarterback and I'm going to move him right here. Okay, and let's see kind of what value we have here for 92. Scroll down here. So if we look right here, 92's at 0.55, 0.46. It continues to drop. I'm looking at his 92's relation to where the quarterback is. We're at 0.43. 0.39. We're continuing to drop. Now we're at 0.1. And so what I think we're going to do is let's flag it at like 0.2, 0.2. Okay. So we'll say if dot is less than 0.2f, and this should be, let me make sure this could be a negative number as well, 0.2. Yeah, that should be fine. So it's less than 0.2, then we're going to print number, breaking, or I'll say disengaging block. And this will be a willful disengage by the defender. And then we have two options here. We have, I think it's break. Is it break block? Break out of block. And we have disengage block. So I believe both of these are actions that are coded elsewhere. So here's break out of block, and here's disengage block. I think we're going to want to use disengage block here. Break block is what happens when essentially a defensive lineman, once an offensive and defensive lineman engage in a block, if a defender is able to kind of bypass or beat the offensive lineman, that's when break out of block is executed. Disengage block is more of a, I'm going to kind of push off the offensive lineman and go in a different direction, not necessarily through him. So I think that's what we want to use here. We will double check. So we'll call disengage block. We've got to let our code compile. That's what this little spinny thing down here in the corner means, which you can't see because my face is covering it up. It's just like a little spinny disk, and when it's done spinning, that means it checks your code and there's no errors with your code, and then it lets you run the game. And it's done. Now let's go run it. Kind of a side note while this is running, if you guys aren't subscribed to Ryan Moody's channel, definitely give him a subscribe. Same thing with us. We have our own YouTube channel. It's Axis Games. Give us a subscribe as well. This is the first stream that we've done, but we're definitely open to doing more in the future. You can also follow us on Twitter, right above, right here. We're at Axis Football, and Moody is Shutdown Safety on Twitter. So if you aren't following us, definitely do that. We interact with the community as much as we can on Twitter, so definitely give us a follow. Let us know your thoughts on this. All right, so let's hike the ball. Let's come here. And we had 93 disengaged 3 times, which doesn't sound right. Let's output the dot product in that situation. Disengaging block, and then we'll say dot was, and then what the dot product was. That seemed a little quick. And the issue was not the fact that he broke out of the block so quick. The issue was the fact that I don't think he was in a position to make this logical choice, that I'm going to disengage the block because the quarterback has passed me. That was the issue there. So we will kind of go back into this and see what we can do. Yeah, the game is Jolly Jr. said the game's way too fast. We've got it. We can tone it down. In fact, I can do that really quickly. That's something that we need to look at. Alright, so snaps the ball, and I'm going to pause the game right away, and I want to see what happens right as these guys engage in a block. Quarterback's got the ball, he's dropping back. Most of you guys don't get to see the game broken down this slow. So 92 engages here. Let's see what our values are. 93. I'm not sure what they're doing. That was very strange. It's like they weren't getting... I'm an idiot. I was wondering why they were doing such weird things. I have them disengaging the block as soon as it occurs. This needs to go inside of here. Yeah, they were all doing... Basically what was happening is they were disengaging the block immediately because I didn't have this inside of the condition. That's funny. It's a real-life coding idiot. Cheers. I fixed it, though. Yeah, the quarterback movement took some time, but we're really happy with the way it turned out. And again, we can do just about anything. It just takes time. And so we have... Our team has about a half dozen people in it, but we all work on the game part-time, and so the best way that you guys can support us and help us grow is by just buying the game. That gives us money, that allows us to hire people, that allows us to possibly consider us quitting our real jobs to do this full-time, because we have the ability to do the stuff. It's just a matter of time for most of it. Alright, so let's take a look at this again. So drop back. I got the game paused. Let's zoom in here and see what we've got going on. We have block here. No one's breaking out yet. 74's, I bet 74's got really low awareness. 98 goes right past him. We disengage the block. The dot product was pretty low here. Let me think. Because he got turned. So I think I'm going to put in a secondary check. Let me think, and then I'll explain in a second. there's 60. 1, 2. Let's see. So I want to make sure that this only happens at the right time. And avoid any kind of fluke things that happen right at the beginning. Yeah, so looking at the chat here, obviously if you guys aren't in a position to purchase the game on any platform, you can definitely share it on social media, tell your friends, but even if you don't have any friends, giving us feedback, watching the videos that we put out, or that any of the YouTube channels put out, and saying, hey, I saw this video, I think if you guys did this, it would be really awesome, or just your feedback and how we can improve the game is super beneficial to us as well. We've said from the beginning that we want to make the games that you guys want to play, and we all started doing this because we love football games, and we want to play this kind of game too. So definitely a labor of love here. Alright, so we snap the ball. So as we go right here, let's kind of watch this. I want to keep an eye on 92 because I'm going to take the quarterback and I'm going to shift left in the pocket, and what should happen, what should hopefully happen, is he should disengage. So let's watch what happens. And he does that. Okay, so let's pause it right here. So 92 disengages out of the block and then comes and chases us, which is exactly what he should do. And then he makes an awful tackle. That's okay, 95 gets us. So let's go... yeah, so price-wise, we will definitely, this is not a $60 game. It will most likely come in at $20 is what we will sell our game for. See, I got to delay a game talking to you guys. See, penalties are in. That was a score clock. I'm trying to read chat, and I got to delay a game call. I'm sure you guys have pistol play. We got pistol formation right here. Alright, snap the ball. Let's take a look. 92 came right through the line. We need to draft a left guard. That was awful. Okay. So as I come over here, we see the defenders kind of break out of the block, and that... okay. One of the things, this is kind of a side note, I know Dave Haig is watching this. Penalties, illegal block in the back. I saw one on that last play. So if a defender goes to engage if an offensive lineman or blocker attempts to engage a defender and their back is turned, the way it's coded now is they're going to like turn and suck them into a block. We can look at a potential for a block in the back there as well, or an illegal block, depending on what's going on. Oh, let me do something real quick. I'm going to open up another script. Global timescale. Let me drop this down a little bit. Adjust the speed of the game. See what you guys think of this. No, you guys can't create a player, but we do have a player editor built into the game that will allow you to edit any of the existing players in the game. So you can essentially create one that way. But we don't have a create player yet. Alright. But we have, we are looking at good news with this fix. It looks like we are pretty close to being done. You guys want to see a play action pass? I'll show you a play action pass. Let me find one. I think we got one here. Slot. Alright, play action fake. So, I don't know if you guys can see this. This is I got an alert. How responsive the team is. So just a second ago I said, Dave, watch the block in the back. He already put a card on his to-do list. And whether that comment comes from somebody internally on the team or from one of you community members, we definitely listen, definitely try to improve the game as much as we can. Alright, so we got play action here, or play action fake. We see our defenders breaking out of the blocks as I come across them. So this looks good. I do want to test stepping up in the pocket and see if they break out that way. So let me do a screenplay, and I'm going to step up through the... Ow, that hurt. Let me go back, do a shotgun. Let me try to step up through the pocket, and we see right there, he's about to get crushed. Where are we? We see right there, as we came back and we stepped through the line, the defenders disengaged and went after the quarterback, which is exactly what they do. And in the video, what happened, or in the original video that showed off the quarterback movement, as the quarterback stepped up into the pocket, the defenders just stayed engaged in a block. So what I'm going to do here is we'll continue to do some testing on this, but this is in a good place. We've got a good fix to it. I don't want to drag this out, but I do want to give you guys an opportunity to ask some questions in the chat. You know, I know some of you are more familiar with the product and with the game and what we've done over the past few years. Some of you kind of just started tuning in with the console announcement. And so I want to give you guys an opportunity to ask any questions that you can. So we'll take the next little bit of time. Just type into chat, and we'll do it. Yes, I did lower the speed of the play. So, get sacked. Let me show you a running play and see what your thoughts are on this. We also have new handoffs in the game, showing off a lot of new stuff here. These one-handed handoffs like that. Yeah, the speed of the game is a little bit better, I agree. Alright, so let's get to some questions. So, will PC support controllers? Yes, PC supports controllers. Natively, it should take an Xbox controller. If you want to use a PlayStation controller, I believe you have to download an emulator. But I use for testing just a generic, I think I got this at Target. It's like a generic Rock Candy Xbox controller. You can also use regular Xbox controllers. And, in fact, here I'll show you. Plug this in while you guys are typing questions. As you saw, when we do a pass play, I've got icon passing turned on, and because I don't have a controller plugged in, that's why you see the numbers above the receiver's heads. When you have a controller plugged in, it switches over to the Xbox buttons. And I'll show you how that is in just a second. Okay, can we talk about the... Holy questions. Alright, hold on. Will we need console beta testers? Yes, but I have no idea how that process works. Just being totally honest here, with our first time being on consoles, I don't know how beta testing will work, how we can get that game to you guys, but rest assured that if we have the ability to have external beta testers, we will definitely let you know that. We will be communicating that on Twitter through our Slack channel. Excuse me. So definitely give us a follow there for more information. Alright, can we talk about franchise in some shape or form? Sure, so I'll try to keep this as brief as possible. In 2017, we had a really bare bones implementation. In 2018 is going to take a huge step forward with that. It's still not going to be where we want, But 2017 had drafts. It had the ability to kind of cut your players. It had player progressions built in, so year after year, some players would get better, some players would get worse based off of performance that year, based off of their age and attributes and all that sort of stuff. We had really deep stat tracking, so you could keep track of like league leaders, team stats, individual player stats. It kept track of so all of the basically all the individual stats for the entire season for every team, every player, every position. So we added a lot in 2017 with that. 2018 we're going to expand, add things like trading, free agency, coaching staffs, and we want to kind of give you guys the tools and the decisions that have meaningful impacts on what's going on in the game. We will be releasing more details with that as we get closer to launch and we figure out what we're able to get in. But I've kind of said this for the past year, and this is going to be our focus for the next year, definitely. We feel like our identity, what our game is built on, is gameplay and franchise mode. And so that's where our focus is. We want gameplay to be realistic. We want gameplay to be fun. We want to create simulation football, and we want to give you guys a really, really deep, interactive, and immersive franchise mode. So that's where our focus is going to be. Let me show off the controllers real quick. So as soon as I hit a button on the controller, when I have it focused on the screen, as soon as I hit a button on the controller, you see that these change to Xbox buttons. So now I can use the controller I'm hitting up on the controller to select, and we go left and right to select your subformation. So I go here, and you can scroll down. You can see you can pick plays now with your controller. I'm going to hit X here for the slot screen. You can hold left tab, and it'll show you the play art before the play. Snap the ball. You see we've got the receiver icons up here. Throw it deep to Y here. And he drops it. So yeah, definitely controller support built in for the PC. Okay, let's see what else we got here. How deep will the customization be? So on PC, you'll be able to change everything from logos, add new teams, edit all kind of stuff. On the console side of things, we're basically going to be limited to, let me show you the uniform editor. You'll have a uniform editor. I don't want to save changes. You'll have a uniform editor, which will allow you to change some aspects of the. Hang on one second. Change the aspects of the player. So, for example, this is what you'll have access to. So, if your team is Minnesota, you're just going to select your team here. We take a look at Denver. You have your uniforms up here. So these are the ones that come with the game. You can do all kind of stuff from changing the font. You're like, I don't really like the font. Let's go with this font or this font. Or I don't really like the outline. I'd like a double outline, so let's go here. And I want to do the inner outline as white. And then we'll go apply. And now we see we have a little white on the inner here. Let's change the outer one to black. I don't know. And now it'll change it to black. So you've got control over your uniform in that aspect. You can change whether or not arm sleeves showing the players. And this is actually set in the individual player editor, whether the individual players have arm sleeves. But this lets you set the color of the arm sleeves here if you want to go with whatever. Same thing with helmet visors. You can change the color, what you want those to be. It'll let you put you can go with chrome helmets or matte finish helmets. Change kind of the finish of the helmet here. You can switch on wrist wraps, armbands. It lets you put the numbers on the sleeves or the shoulders. You can check those on and off. And then you can save the uniforms. And so this gives you, and you've got different pants options. You can switch gloves and shoes and all that sort of stuff. And certain teams have different built-in uniforms. Like one of the cool fonts here, this is like a steel type font. Let me zoom in a little bit, hold on. I don't have the controls working on this at the moment, but I can zoom in. You can see this font is kind of like a steel font, and you can change like the color on the inside if you want to change it to like a yellow and then apply it. You can do it that way. So you have some control over this. We try to do some in-game customization, but you can't create logos and that sort of stuff on consoles. We're still trying to figure that kind of stuff out. All right, let me take a couple more questions. Let me figure out where I was. I got to scroll up. Can you do this on console? Yes, you can do this on console, but no logo changes. The arms look a little short. Yeah, we know. We've gotten feedback for a while that the arms look a little short. We don't have a 3D modeler on the team. We outsource this, and so it is something that we are looking at fixing, but it's not game-breaking right now. We know it's cosmetic, and so yes, we will fix it in the future, but it's not something that we are going to do right this second. Okay, so rain, snow, and fields breaking up during gameplay. Like the graphics are breaking up? Alright, I'm going to scroll to the bottom here. Okay, will different face masks be available? Not this year. We've got one face mask, but we are looking at options for the future. That's a money issue. It costs a lot of money to have a modeler make those, or it costs a good bit of money for us to hire a modeler. So that is something that we can do, but we'll have to wait on financial resources for that. Will there be defensive line and defensive back shifting? Yes, that's in the game already. You can, on defense, shift your line left, right. You can scatter them. You can pinch them. Same thing with linebackers. You can shift your coverage left and right. You can send your defensive backs deep. You can move them into press coverage. There's defensive audibles. There's defensive hot routes. You can assign. So you line up and you want to take your nickel back and blitz him instead of doing what he was doing. You can do that. You can take an individual player on defense and assign him to an individual player on offense. There's all kind of that stuff built in. Offensive has hot routes. Offensive has audibles as well. So there's all that built into the game. All right, so has Sony or Microsoft helped us? They've helped us in the fact that they said yes when we wanted to go on consoles, but that's about it. What offensive moves do we have? We just went over that. Any updates on career mode? We decided that while career mode sounds really cool, we want to get better gameplay in franchise mode before we move on to something like that. But that is definitely something that we will consider in the future. Will there be crowd interaction? Yes, the crowd cheers and boos at certain times in the game. It's minimal, but it's there, something we can definitely build on in the future. How many teams in season or franchise mode? 32 teams come with the game. That is something that we are kind of internally debating as we look at some different stuff. We will keep you guys posted on that is all I will say right now. Will the game be on disc also? From Kenneth Coulter. No, it will be only digital release. The overhead cost associated with putting a game on disc is something that is out of reach for us at the moment, so we will not be doing that. Will we have different stadium customization? Right now, no, but that is something that we have plans to build into our franchise mode. You will have options to choose different stadiums. We will have at least 3 custom stadiums with 3D animated fans built into the game. We have a brand new stadium for 2018 for those of you that know the 2 that we had before. We will show that off very soon. It is awesome. It is also modular, which means broken into separate independently functioning parts, which will allow us to, if you basically long story short, it'll allow us to build that into franchise mode where you can purchase additional sections, customize parts of your stadium, and that sort of thing. Difficulty sliders. There, you can control the difficulty of offense and defense right now. We have in the plans to add sliders to the games this year, but being totally honest, I don't know if it's going to make it in. We want to. We know that sliders are important to a lot of you guys so that you can tweak exactly how you want the game to run, but that is something that isn't in right now, although you can select between 4 offensive and defensive difficulties. Okay, let me scroll to the bottom, grab some more. Yes, JD has been pushing for modular stadiums for about a year now, and so that's definitely his baby. Instant replay, no, but we have somebody working on it. It won't be ready for this year, but it is something that we are working on. You don't want us to show you each play, being totally honest. Until the game gets better, just settle for what you can see the first time. As we continue to improve gameplay, then we'll slow things down. That partially a joke, and partially we could do instant replay, and we could do lots of other things, but we feel like the number one thing you guys want is to have really good gameplay, and outside of that, you want franchise modes. So those are kind of 2 separate things that we want to focus on, and until we get to that point, the supplementary features are going to have to wait a little bit. Okay, release date. I will say we're looking at the beginning of the NFL season. If we were only releasing on Steam, I could probably give you the exact date and hour, because Steam doesn't have a certification process. You basically say, hey, I want to release a game, and they say, okay, and they let you do it. Not the case with Xbox and PlayStation. It's a long certification process. We've never gone through it, but knowing what we know of the process, it is a several-month process. And so I hope we can release in August. It might not be until September. We will keep you guys posted as we go through that process with them, and let you know. And as soon as we know something, we'll let you guys know. Okay. Will there be more phrases for the broadcasters so they don't get repetitive? So we have added some of that this year. As we added penalties, there are lots of commentary that they make about the penalties, so that's in the game. And there will be some new ones in there as well, and we will continue to add to those year after year. Yes, there are cheerleaders in the game. I believe you can even customize the cheerleaders' uniforms on PC only. Alright, scrolling up, Gods. How do you decide which animation triggered during situations in order to simulate real football experience? So, long story short, without getting into it, there's a giant flowchart. The official term is a FSM, or a finite state machine, that basically triggers what animations can trigger from other animations, and it is a super long, complicated set of conditions and AI processes and formulas that determine it. And I would love to be more descriptive than that, but we could take like 5 hours just going through that, and we unfortunately don't have the time to do that today. So hopefully that brief answer was enough to suffice. Let me see a couple other questions that we have here. Can we import PC customizations to console? No, I don't believe you can. The consoles block those kind of file restrictions, and we will continue to research the best way to allow you guys to customize stuff. But we don't know at this point, so we will just have to keep you guys posted. When will you show console gameplay? From Mark. What you saw today, if you saw, this is console gameplay. It's going to look right like this does. It'll run a little bit smoother because it won't be run from the Unity editor, but what you see here is what it'll look like on consoles. It'll probably look honestly a little bit better than it does here. And it shouldn't be much different between the PC and the console versions. They should be identical. We build right from the same spot. So when we go to build, we build Xbox One, PC, all that stuff is right here. So it comes from the same source, excuse me, so it should look identical. Have we looked for big investors? So, no, is the short answer. And this was just a preference. I know some people have gone out and gotten the big investors. We feel like, in our experience, big investors want to have a say in the game, and we want to make sure that the game we are making is the game the fans want, and the game that we want to play, and the game that we want to make. And so the way that we can do that is by doing kind of a grassroots approach where we build up our own funds, build up our own community and fan base with the support of you guys. And so that's a direction that we chose not to go. Could there be a targeting system for throwing the ball on consoles? There is. I will show it to you briefly as we wrap up here. I'm going to take just a couple more questions. Let me show you how that works here. Give me 1 second. So I'm running the game here, and then I'll show you how the aim passing system works. Alright, so if you're playing on PC, those of you that are kind of new to the game, let's go here, and then I'm going to go into the options, and then I'm going to switch it over to aimed passing mode instead of icon. You can switch at any point in the game, and then instead of the icons above the receiver's head, you're going to see a yellow marker on the field, and this is where you throw the ball. It works really well when you're doing keyboard and mouse, so I'm going to throw the ball right here. Ooh, that looked like it hurt. Let's try that again. It'll literally throw the ball wherever you click. So if I'm want to throw to this corner route over here, it'll throw the ball right there. It's a nice over-the-shoulder catch, which works really well. Now on consoles, I have the controller plugged in here. I'm going to switch to using a controller, and you still have the pass circle, and you can see here it's moving on the field. I'm moving it pre-snap. And you simply move it with the right controller stick here. You'll move your player with your left, and then you'll throw it with this. So as I drop back, I can select where I want this to go as I move it around the field. And then when I want to throw, I simply hit the button, and it throws it to that location. Okay? I obviously overthrew him, but I wanted to show you where it was. And you can toggle between the two at any point in time. If you're playing a local two-player match, one of you can use icon, one of you can use aimed passing. So that's there. I will tell you one thing. Big props to Dave Haig, one of the developers on our team. Last night, he added kind of a merge of the two systems. So if we go back to icon passing mode, and let's say we've got the X receiver streaking down the field. If I want to throw it to the X receiver, I can also hold in left, right, up, or down and direct the pass to that direction. On the left stick. So if like you're running left with the quarterback and you're holding in left and you hit X, it's going to direct the pass a little bit to that spot on the field. It kind of nudges it in that direction, which gives you more control over where the pass is while still not having to physically aim it. So it's a great alternative. You don't have to use it. If you don't want to use it, just don't press the direction when you hit the button. So there you go. We also, I don't know if you notice on the last play where I throw that corner route to the guy who caught it on the sideline over his shoulder, we've improved the catching on the run aspect of the game. That was a big point of feedback in 2017. You'll notice he kind of caught it in stride as opposed to stopping and turning around and catching the ball. So that is definitely something that is improved. All right, so let me take a couple more questions and then we will wrap up here today. Will there eventually be a halftime show? There will eventually be a lot of stuff. That is something that we would love to add. we would love to grow this game to be and incorporate all of the things and all of the ideas that you guys have. The limiting factor is resources, both time and money, which are very related. So we will do our best to get as much in as we can. There are player matchups, yes. We at the beginning of the game before it starts, we'll show kind of like the quarterback matchup, kind of like a quick highlight, stats, attribute ratings, player portraits, and that sort of thing. Will we be streaming anytime again soon? I would love to do this. It seems like you guys enjoyed this and got some out of this. So yes, I will be streaming this. I think what we might do is maybe we'll stream some beta testing and some other fixes that we're doing. Allow you guys to get some sneak peeks in this. What you're seeing here, this is our old stadium with our 2D cardboard fans. This is old. As you can see, it's Axis 17. This is not the new stadium that I was talking about. We'll show that off soon. Yeah, let me check. We'll take one more question here. Are there jumping catches? Yes, there are jumping catches in the game. You don't see them very often. One of the areas that we already have down that we want to focus on in the near future is wide receiver, defensive back interaction, getting that to be more realistic. One thing that we've changed from 17 to 18 is when a pass was deflected, the receivers wouldn't really react to the new location of the ball. That's something that we have fixed. They do chase or attempt to chase the ball down, both the defenders and the receivers. All right, last question. Chaz Flowers, in franchise or season, can you implement for performance-based attribute upgrades? That is in the game, sir. Based off of how well the player has done that year, based off of their age and various other combination of attributes and that sort of thing, they absolutely can get better. They can also get worse, depending on how they did. So yes, that is absolutely in the game. All right, folks. Well, that is going to wrap us up for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. I do want to quickly remind you guys, if you haven't subscribed to Ryan Moody's channel, definitely hit subscribe there. You can also subscribe to us. We are Axis Games on YouTube. Ryan was gracious enough to turn his channel over to us this morning so that we could share with you guys. Also, give us a follow on Twitter. If you haven't, we are at Axis Football. You can see right above my head there. We interact as much as we can with you guys there. Send us your feedback, thoughts. We'll also put out beta testing and release information, as well as some sneak peeks into videos and that sort of thing. So again, thank you guys so much. If you have any questions that I missed in the chat, send those to us on Twitter, and I'll get those taken care of. But thanks again, and until next time.